George Kavassilas is an extraterrestrial contactee who began having experiences when he was only 7 years old with grey extraterrestrials. He's also had experiences with positive human looking extraterrestrials, the Galactic Federation. He's been taken to the Pentagon where he was debriefed and met with George Bush Sr. He has been writing about his experiences and how to develop an affinity for one's soul resonance and to be able to journey home and to overcome the soul traps that afflict humanity.
You're listening to Exopolitics Today with Dr. Michael Salla, your source for the uncensored truth regarding the human, extraterrestrial, global, and political agenda. Click the like button and subscribe to this channel. And now, here's Dr. Michael Salla.
Well, welcome, George, to Exopolitics Today.
Oh, Michael, it's so good to see you again. Yeah, thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity.
Yes, well, we did actually get to meet in the Gold Coast back in 2018, and I know we did a short interview there, but this time we get to actually go much deeper into your background and share what's been happening ever since.
Yeah, it's been a big journey, Michael. A lot going on in the background. Yeah.
So for those that don't know about you, why don't we go back to the beginning? Like what happened when you were 6.5, 7 years old with these grey extraterrestrials?
Yeah, and I was laying in bed, and all of a sudden, my body was just vibrating with fear, and my mum was in the kitchen, and it was about 6:30, 7 o'clock in the evening, and I was just laying there getting ready to go to sleep, and I couldn't believe how terrified I was. And up until that point in my life, I was really focused, really present, straight A student. And after that event, I got, I would say, unpleasantly dealt with and experimented upon, and it created a trauma and a schism in my consciousness. And after that, it was really difficult to hold focus, and I really struggled to sit in a classroom. It's not the only reason. The other reason was I was having experiences with other beings after that also, which showed me things about life. And then I'm sitting in a classroom, and the night before I was in a craft with children doing telekinesis or whatever, and then coming back to a classroom and then having to deal with the version of science and curriculum that they were presenting to us. I really struggled with the whole thing.
Your parents, you mentioned that in the pre-interview, they actually immigrated from Egypt to Australia, and that kind of like, and there's a Freemason element in that as well. So you want to tell us about that, because that sets the context for why you were having all these amazing experiences.
Yeah, my father got really involved. They migrated in 1957. They had to flee from Egypt back to Greece because of the takeover back from the Arabian countries, and that hierarchy taking over Egypt once again. And then they migrated from Greece to Australia a few months later in 1957. And the way it worked, what happened was my father and my mother both could read and write 5 languages and speak clearly, fluently 7 languages. And on the boat, the captain noticed my father talking to different people in different languages. So he ended up assigning my father as the interpreter on the boat for the big voyage from the Mediterranean here to Australia. And it went from there. My father ended up joining the Freemasons. All my uncles did. You know, the whole family was involved in the process. And then later in the years, my uncle was the CEO of Coca-Cola in Greece, and he was leaned upon by the Brotherhood, so to speak, and he refused, and they ended up career assassinating everyone he knew, including my father. But prior to that event, my father ended up getting involved in some really high-level operations, and he was stationed. I'll give you one example. He was stationed for 6 months at the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio. And he was one of the most brilliant computer minds at the time. He was working with NCR at the time, and then he was involved in these background projects as well. And that really brought the attention to me as a child, and it went on from there, Michael.
So you have this experience. You're 7 years old, and you're traumatized. So what? And I guess that maybe your background, your genetics, were of interest to the Greys, and so what happened subsequent to that? I mean, did you have more experiences with them?
Yeah, so the background on the bloodline on my father's side of the family, we go back to a time of, say, 1347, when my ancestor was the patriarchal priestly king of the Greek Orthodox Church, something like, close to what the Pope is like in the Catholic Church. And so we have there's a royal seal on the family and all that sort of stuff. And so we don't have any of that royalty flair or anything like that going on in our family. It's just diluted over the centuries. But in the DNA, there's definitely something there. And so our bloodline is of interest, I suppose you could say, because even on my mother's side of the family, we got it right back to around 300 AD, when my ancestor actually built the gates to the city of Constantinople on my mother's side. So there is a fair bit going on in the way of bloodlines. And my ancestor was there for the Creed of Nicaea as well, when Emperor Constantine created the state religion, which we now know as Christianity. And so it was a really, really interesting background, that these bloodlines, the two coming together, that I chose to incarnate into at this time.
Okay, so why did the Greys choose you? You did mention that they were giving a warning that if we aren't careful as a civilization, that we could end up like them. So what did they mean?
Sure. So there's all different kinds of greys. I just want to get clear about the whole grey issue from my perspective, from my experience. Okay. So the ones that came and said that to me, I was a teenager and I was playing electronic games. Back then we had Nintendo was out and stuff like that in the 80s and things like that. So we had basic games, but these greys appeared in my room, and they were looking at me. I didn't feel threatened. I actually felt quite a benevolence from this group. And they said to me, if you continue down the path of technology, you're going to end up like us. And that particular group of greys that came was humans at this time. They're actually the ones that are the breakaway civilization. And they took a branch off our timeline, and they've gone down the path roughly about 1 million years, they said to me, of evolution, where all the body parts atrophy because technology is basically their main focus. And so technology does everything for them. So the only muscle that really developed was the cranium, because their focus is consciousness and intellect and knowledge and information and technology. Now they regret it, and they've come back at this time to restructure their way of life.
Okay, is that? I mean, how accurate do you think that is? I mean, there are people that say that the Greys have a reputation in the galaxy of approaching worlds and saying, well, they're giving them a story like, we are suffering some genetic disease and we have come here because we want your genetics to help us restore a problem that we created somewhere in our past or the future or whatever. So, I mean, do we believe that story?
There are groups of greys who are doing that. This one particular group that I'm speaking of was the original breakaway group from this timeline around this time, and they've come back because these beings, a lot of them, they live in time. If that, so not in a space-time location as we know it. They surf time and then they drop into realities. It's a different way of life. It's a really unusual one because they're so advanced. Now, there's different kinds of greys. So these were the humanoid greys that I'm talking about. There were people here right now in the secret space program that took off, million years of evolution after choosing the path technology, and have come back because this is where they know it all went wrong when they branched off at this time. Now, there's different types of greys. Those are the humanoid greys. Then we have reptilian greys. We have insect greys. We have botanical greys. We have cetaceous greys, right? So there's different groupings of that humanoid structure. And some are automaton. You even have automaton greys. So like android type of greys. So there's all different kinds. And from those like 6 fundamental base greys, the human, the cetaceous, the insect, the reptilian, the botanical, so 5, then branches out all different kinds of greys from, 8 foot tall to 6 foot tall to 3 foot tall. It all depends. But that was the humanoid structure that was developed quite profoundly as kind of like a worker race or just a different kind of avatar race for different purposes. But I just want to get clear about that there is so many different variations on what we call greys. So when we do talk about them, it is nice to be a little bit more specific as to which group we're referring to.
Yeah, that is very helpful because I know we understand that humans are tremendously diverse and many different genetics, and often we generalize about greys, either tall greys, the short greys, and then there's the programmed life forms. But you're pointing out that there's actually much more diversity than that.
Oh, way more. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you have all these experiences with greys beginning at 7 years old, and they're giving you messages. And then in 2003, you have something that you've described as your grand experience. So you want to tell us what that was?
Yes, I was having experiences throughout my life as a young boy, and then I kind of shut it out mentally, even though it was still happening in the background. But I decided to consciously come back in my late 20s. And then in 2003, I had what I consider the biggest experience of my life, where my galactic family came and picked me up. And it was a conglomerate of different races, but mostly from Sirius, my brother from Sirius. There was Pleiadians there, Arcturians. It was just a really beautiful homecoming when I went from the shuttlecraft to the main craft, and I was walking in behind my brother, and a lot of them were wearing a lot of like beigey robes. There was a lot of that, for want of a better expression, that kind of Jedi feel to the situation. But there was other elements as well. And the craft I went on was not manufactured, it was manifested. And that's the way we operate from that vibrational level within the Sirius system. Each star system has a wide variety of dimensions. So it's really important to address a star system or a race according to the dimension, not just, according to the dimension, not like a broad brush, because you get benevolent and malevolent beings coming from different star systems. And from the Sirius system, for example, there are some malevolent groups, but mostly benevolent, And then what we did was, after I said hello to everybody, reuniting myself with everyone, we went into a room and I sat down in a really comfortable chair, laid back, and my brother and other, I would say, close associates, friends, comrades, and other family members stood around me, and we integrated our heart soul essences. So I'm not talking chakras, I'm talking much deeper than that. Our heart soul essence is our unified point where we pierce the veil of space-time to then supernova, and then animate ourselves into existence. It's how we come to literally exist in whatever space-time location we occupy. So we connected our heart soul essences together. And the reason they did that is because we don't use technology in that way. We didn't need to maintain integrity of my body, because I came out of my body, and I was there hovering, looking at my body, looking at everyone standing around. We had this beautiful unconditional love unified field, and that was holding the integrity of my body while I was out of my body to that degree, because it was equivalent to like the death process. That's how much of me came out. So I wasn't just astral traveling. Then I could feel this magnetic pull that was so strong, and I was hovering with my awareness in the top corner of the room looking down, and my brother's looking up at me, and he's like, hold on just a bit longer. You haven't done this for a really long time, he said. So I'm holding on, and then he gave me the nod, and I just let go, and then I was straight out of that craft. All of a sudden, everything was just shrinking. All the stars were shrinking. I popped out of the galaxy. All the galaxies were shrinking, and then I popped out of the cosmic domain, and then I popped out of what we call the multiverse, which is still what I call in the grand cosmic arena of this grand light universe, because they're all multiple versions of the same verse, so they're all light-based universes, but what we call in quantum physics parallel universes. So I popped out of that. Now I'm heading towards the heart of the universe, reintegrating with that. And that's what I call soul. So I'm just going to share with you my labeling system. So that is what I call soul, because that is where we are whole. It's got to do with logos, so the vibration of words and the energy of words. From there, from the heart of the universe, from soul, we project spirit, right? And consciousness. So spirit is that formless expression of our being that is emanates from pure love, right? From love. Consciousness is universal mind energy, right? So we've got love and knowledge, and they're the two base elements that manifest every single realm reality into being in the universe. The two base elements of the universe, love and knowledge. Now, I got to experience my soul fully in full unity with the universal being. Then think of your soul as a doorway as well. So that was my portal to going outside beyond this universe and then experiencing the Omniverse back out in the infinite nature of life. So it was a really incredible experience. And when I came back in, and there's a lot of detail I can share in that space, but we haven't got the time for that. That's just that journey alone is a interview unto itself. And when I came back in, and here's the key elements, I came back in, and once again, I was one with the universal being, and we all have this going on. You know, it's nothing special about me. And I was experiencing the entire universe in one go. And then when I came back into the cosmic domains, it got more specific as my focus and awareness started coming back towards our galactic realm. And here's what's really big. It took me a while to reconcile this, Michael, or the whole thing, really. I'm still reconciling it after all these years. There was all these streams of energy pouring off the earth, different colors, different textures, and they're all going to one particular location. And the streams of energy were going into these entities, minor entities, and then streaming from those minor entities to this one entity. And all of that energy that was streaming off was all the worship, all the devotion, all the different religious organizations, etc., and all that energy was pouring off the earth into these minor deific interfaces, and all going back to what I call the God entity, who was just feeding off all that worship, all that adulation, all that devotion. It was an incredible thing to be a witness to. So I've really struggled with that over the years, but I'm at peace with it now because I really understand what was happening.
Okay, so you, in this experience in 2002, 2003, you meet your soul family or ET family from Sirius and Pleiades. So we're talking about physical beings in a ship that you met, and then that opened up this kind of more grand experience or journey into the heart of the universe, as you described it. So I just wanted to kind of like to help clarify or ground exactly what happened. That you have this physical interaction with these beings from those star systems, and then that opened up a kind of a journey of consciousness as you described it.
It's a journey of beingness. It's like consciousness is mind energy and spirit is the love. Okay, so when you can't have knowledge without love, and you can't have love without knowledge. If you have knowledge without love, you're just a computational, intellectual, entity, right? If you have love without knowledge, you're just a passive blob, no good to anyone. And when we begin to remember these two base elements in the universe, you'll see it everywhere. It's the yin and yang in a different expression. So you've got what we call dark and light as a fundamental expression, but love and knowledge, that's the dance. We're all dancing big time.
Okay.
And so when I came back into my body, and I couldn't stop laughing. And because we were so connected with our heart soul essences, we laughed and we laughed and we laughed. It was the most beautiful laughter I've ever experienced in my life, because I woke up in that moment. I realized the structure of things, and all my belief systems were just dissolving in that moment. It was an incredible experience.
So you meet these different beings from the different star systems. Some of them are part of your soul family. Now, is there a connection with whether it's the Galactic Federation, the Galactic Confederation, the Galactic Alliance? I mean, were these beings part of any kind of an alliance?
Yeah, there's. I just want to start with, there's a lot of different organizations in the galaxy. There's many different imperial structures, many, and I mean a lot. When we start to get to some of the more prominent governing, or shall I say management teams, you've got I'll work from the inner to the outer. So in the core, we have the galactic intelligence, the galactic being. Okay, that is this galaxy. Okay, so from there, the closest to that core, not physically, I mean energetically, is a group of feminine beings, because this galaxy is a female being, right? That's why we call it the Milky Way, because it's the nurturing of the mother's milk. And it's not just because it's white in the sky. It looks like milk across the sky. So there's a lot deeper components to it, elements to it. So there's a group of feminine beings. Now they hold the highest, if you want to call it, in a hierarchical structure, highest authority when it comes to all bodies. And the governance, and it's less governance, it's management of the galactic realm. And so in my function in the Sirius star system, that aspect of me, I also have an incarnation in the Pleiades, one in Arcturus, Eridanus, there's a few. We all have many incarnations in this galaxy running parallel to this life. And so that part of me plays a diplomatic role, and especially the diplomacy to do with this solar system and the Earth, because of Sirius, the connection Sirius has with Mother Sophia, our planet, and the connection that Pleiades has with Mother Sophia. These and the Orion system. So Sirius, Orion, and Pleiades, and then Lyra, I'll put next on the list, are the main star systems that have been managing, let's call it Project Earth, because this is absolutely not an experiment. Okay, this is an intentional process of integrating into unity through the fractal process. So understanding the structure of our galaxy, shall I say remembering it, remembering the structure of our solar system, our planet, and our avatars. Once we remember the big picture, then all these dramas, be it galactic federations, be it cabal, deep state, gods, religions, everything just falls into place once you remember the structure, the fractal structure. It all becomes evidently clear.
Okay, all right. Well, that's interesting. So I know there's a lot of people that talk about the Earth being a galactic experiment, and that there are different galactics come here and set up these genetic experiments over the course of many millions of years. and that we're kind of like at the tail end of this series of experiments. But you're saying that Project Earth is not a genetic experiment, but it's more this manifestation of fractality. That's
Correct. It's intentional. And a lot of planning has gone into the creation of this planetary being and the cycles, the eras, the epochs it's been living through, and now getting it to this one. And what we're closing is not just an era, we're closing an epoch. And the universe is actually closing an eon. So it's gone from the expansion of the outward breath, it's now peaking, and now it's the inward breath is beginning. And because we are at the pointy edge of evolution in the universe, so we've forgotten who we are as a species. This is the key, right? Once we remember who we are as a species, then everything that's happening to us makes sense, total sense. It's clear, it's really obvious. It's not, you're not grasping at straws to make things fit. It just goes boom, 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 boom. Everything just fits straight into place because this is the background. And the background is that we are the most advanced avatar in the universe. We are universal fractals. So what's sitting before me there, Michael, when I look at you, is every cell in your body is a galactic realm. Every molecule is like a nebula, and every atom is like a star system. And we are walking universal fractals. So our existence, our entire existence in this universe is being expressed through these bodies. These avatar bodies have the genetics to and the capacity to hold the entire universal intelligence and love and light within it. So everything we've seen, everything we've done, and everything we've been is accessible, is actually pouring in and integrating into a unity in these avatars. And that is the prime intention for the creation of these human avatars. What has happened since that, when different groups have come here and meddled with our genetics and modified us, that was with imperial intentions, different agendas, this, that, the other. But here's an interesting thing, because I've been working with Arn really closely, right? I have a soul agreement with Arn. You also know him as Anu, okay? Now, Arn issued an instruction to Enki or Ea that to make sure that the genetics, when we were modified, because Enlil wanted to really dumb us down, but Arn issued an instruction to Ea and said, you've got to make sure that these genetics stay solid, stay in place. And that is our ability to access our fractal nature and therefore the entire universe. Because when it comes down to who we are as a species, I have a brief statement summary. We are universal embryos in the planetary womb of the universal mother. So it's remembering the structure of this solar system, this planet. Once we remember the environment, the ecosystem, and the structure and the intention for the existence of these realms and the intention for the existence of the human avatar, then we will clearly we'll get clarity, and clarity is freedom. We're going to really remember who we are as a species, and it's going to change everything in this world once we remember.
Okay, so just to kind of like rephrase what you just said, so the Sumerian legends of Anu and Enki or Ea, in terms of seeing within humanity some kind of potential. I think Ea or Enki saw humanity as having this great potential. So they recognized what you just said, that the human body is a kind of fractal of the universe. And so they wanted to maybe assist that process, that fractal unfolding, whereas there were other beings, whether we're talking about Enlil or Marduk or Draconians, they just wanted to dumb us down because they wanted us to just be exploitable workers that were expendable for whatever their imperial agenda.
Yeah, exactly. And what I like about what Aya did was he really listened to his father, because the way his father and Arn shared this with me, the communication that he had in regards to this with Aya. So I felt the energy of it, if you know what I mean. And it was pure. Arn went through a change. There's disinformation going around that Arn has died or this, that, and the other. That's really untrue. Arn had a very, very big experience. When you get to a point and you're sitting on a throne and you're in charge of an empire, you know, there's things that will happen to you when you're in that position. And realizations begin to happen. You start having contact with bigger energies. I'll say deeper energies, more core energies of creation, because you're impacting creation so much with your imperial intentions. So Arn's relationship with the galactic intelligence went to a whole new level, and he went through a massive shift to the point where he's wants to step off the throne. He's done with imperial lifestyle, and he wants to come back home to the natural way of love and the natural way of life. And this is the basic fundamental process we're in. We have a natural organic pathway of our evolution, and then we have all this imperial influence coming in trying to tell us that we're this, that, and the other, and we should follow them. And I'm like, well, hang on a minute. You know, what about the information about who we are as a species, who we are, who this planet is as a being, who the sun is? Who's that sun? And why is the sun designed to illuminate shadow? Why? You go to other star systems and realities are illuminated in all directions. There's no shadow. You know, you come here and the shadow is really distinct. Why? Because that's the intention of the solar system as a universal fractal. So I don't know how much deeper you want to go into this, but this is a really big topic. I'm happy to leave it there or go deeper. It's up to you, Michael, because I know there's a lot we want to talk about today.
Yeah, maybe that's something we could follow up on in a later interview to go into that. So would you agree? Some believe that right now we're in a transition, like our planetary system is in a transition from a planet that was largely controlled by Enlil, Marduk, and their minions that kind of like agreed or wanted to just manipulate and control us, to one where this kind of more positive influence, whether it's Enki, Ea, Anu, or more positive galactics, are wanting to allow humanity to kind of unfold and achieve our fullest potential.
Yeah, exactly. And you see, with the Galactic Federation, I was in 2004. I don't know if you know this, but I was an ambassador for the Galactic Federation back in 2004, and I did a series of events in Adelaide. I was also submitting paperwork to ASIO there on behalf of the Federation. So it was really a fascinating time of my life, because that happened in 2004. After 2003, my light emanation changed, obviously, with my experience that I had, and I got the attention of bodies like the Galactic Federation, and they know me anyway from out there, right? We know each other quite well. So the Federation is an imperial conglomerate, okay, and they're doing good things given the frequency spectrum that they reside within. Right, this is the key here. The Federation resides within a particular frequency spectrum. Now, in that space, in that arena, right, there's still what we call conflict. Yeah, that's why people need to be kept safe by the Federation. And that's why there's, if you look at the mindset of Earth and the vibrational frequency of the military-industrial complex, governing systems, etc., really the Federation has come to us now because we're vibrating that frequency, right? And we're on the precipice of serious conflict, etc. So the Federation in and of itself is not an evil organization. I just want to get that absolutely clear. It is a very beneficial organization to all species and races who are living and operating in that frequency spectrum. Yeah? Do you get what I mean, Mark? So right now, in our evolutionary path, we have what I've released, that synopsis, the 3 levels of imposition. You can also look at that synopsis as a path of steps of evolution. Okay, so we're currently have been dealing with what we call the deep state, or the old world cabal, the old banking industrialist families. That's the level 1. The second level of imposition is the technological intelligence god. Now, this entity is really powerful. It's second only to the mother god and father god of all religions, which was what I expressed earlier you know, when all that energy was pouring into that God entity that I spoke of earlier, right? And then we are dealing with those three levels of imposition. So we've got the old world cabal, the deep state, old world industrious banking families. Then we have the technological intelligence God. And then the third layer of imposition is the religious imposition, the spiritual imposition. So they're all imperial structures, all three, all different forms of expression. And then once we go through these steps of evolution, so level 2 has been imposing itself on Earth for some time and is successfully harvesting a lot of human consciousness by corralling them into the technological singularity. Level 3 is coming in behind. It's about to start really pushing and pressing because level 2 has been contracted by level 3, I hope you're keeping up with me, to act as the scalpel, to sever the human race from planet Earth, from Mother Sophia, to then have us no longer rooted in our foundation, in our solid foundation, right, from where we spawned, where we came from, to then be harvested. We're primed for harvest. And so by level 3. So there's a degree of harvest of level 1. There's a greater degree of harvest in level 2, but the greatest degree of harvest that is coming is in level 3. And then once we get past our relationship, so our relationship with the old world cabal, we are now addressing our relationship with technology. This is humanity as a whole. Think humanity as a single organism, the collective human soul, right? And Mother Earth. So two entities, they're both having to deal with the old world oppression. Now they're dealing with the imposition of technology, our relationship to technology. And then what's coming up around the corner is our relationship with the gods. And all of this has to be sorted so then we can get clear. So once we get clear of these three levels, then we get back to who and what we truly are, Homo luminous. And we are universal love, and we are universal light, and we're universal knowledge. And we truly are incredible. We are at the leading edge of evolution in this universe.
Go into more depth into that three levels of imposition that there was a slide that we just showed. I mean, it was very dense. People couldn't read it. So I just wanted to kind of like just go a little more into depth into the three levels so that people get a good idea into how you kind of frame what the big picture that's going on here. So the first level, level 1, the geopolitical, the initial oppression and subjugation caused by elite bloodlines and so forth. So, you know, there's a nice kind of like graphic of the black nobility that shows the kind of like oppressive structure and the hierarchy. So you want to just go into that? Yeah, just tell us a little bit about this kind of like this structure that controls a lot of people's lives on the planet.
Yeah, and it goes all the way to the Godhead. So you've got these imperial structures, and you know, when you're looking at the one on the left, for example, the two-headed eagle or phoenix, I'm not sure what you want to call it. It's that is more the you'll see what's bound in its claws, and a lot of it has to do with the way they want to manage our consciousness, want to manage our spiritual journey, and want to manage our lives, a whole lot, basically, because our genetics are the most prized possession, Michael, in the universe, because of our structure. We're full universal fractal avatars. All other incarnational avatars are partial fractal. We're the only species that's full universal fractal. Okay, so these hierarchical models, imperial structures that have come along, you always have the Godhead sitting on the throne at the top of the empire, imperial structure. Always. You have a God sitting on that throne. And then you have all the hierarchies that come through. Now, it's all blurry for me on my end, so I can't read any of that. I'm just letting you know. That's why I'm doing the best I can to see what's there and explain it to my best ability. But yes, these are hierarchical structures that are definitely in play, 100%.
Okay, all right.
But I can't read anything on it.
Okay, all right. Well, that diagram, it just kind of shows what I think you describe as that kind of first level of the ruling bloodline families and the way in which they've set up a hierarchical control structure on the planet Earth, and that's the kind of foundation for this level 2 that you described, the exopolitical, the scalpel, where you have all the different extraterrestrial groups that are kind of a level above that. So I just want to give you the opportunity to explain level 2 in relationship to this hierarchical structure on the planet.
All right. Where does level 2 fit in? Okay, so the Crown Council of 13, we got it down. You've heard of the 12 tribes, obviously. So that's multi-dimensional reference. So the way we got the human avatar to be the way it is, and now I'm talking from my galactic diplomatic self from the Sirius system, right? Because we're vast multidimensional beings. So I'm just going to talk from different places within my own being. Yeah, I'm not channeling anything. I just have access to different aspects of me in the galactic realm. So that what we had to do was to get all the genetic groupings correct, right? And we got it down to 24 different types of genetic groupings, and we needed to get it down to 12. The 24 was good because we had 12 masculine and 12 feminine, and we wanted to balance that out, and love and knowledge. Okay, so we needed to balance out the mother and father archetypal constructs. Then the planets in the solar system were then a representation of, let's say, we'll talk about DNA strands, 12 DNA strands. We've got it down to 12 DNA strands, right? Groupings. And that's where that Council of 13 comes from, because you've got ambassadors and representatives for each genetic grouping. And there was an original Council of 13. Yeah. So the 13th member of that council is the one that holds the balance. So you got masculine, feminine, love and knowledge, dark and light, and the one in the center is the unified position that holds, the management position. So our genetics were reflected in the structure of the solar system. So we had the 12 planets, and each planet was an archetypal theme of each strand of DNA. So the process was to come in, and the civilizations, this is a big story, Michael. The beings from different genetic groupings then came and had incarnational experiences on Mercury, on Venus, on Mars, etc., Maldek, etc., etc. Now, then, after things were played out in all these different planetary systems, all different dimensions of reality, then it came to bringing everything into a unified expression on one planet, and then to create the one avatar. So this is how we ended up as a fractal structure. Do you get where I'm coming from?
Sure.
Yeah, and so that's why our genetics are so prized. So I went off on a tangent from the Council of 13. So each one of the World Monarch, Council of 13, Committee of 300, I can read a bit now, think tanks, I'm trying to make out the words, central banks, tax, yeah. So all of that whole infrastructure, because the Godhead at the top has contracted the technological intelligence God to come and impose itself here to act as a scalpel, all of these hierarchical structures under directive from the Godhead are now adopting and embracing technology in different forms, different kinds of technology. And it's a really, really big challenge that we have right now, because there's very good technology, benevolent technology, but there's also malevolent technological intelligence, unfortunately.
Yeah, what you said about we, humanity, are an avatar that incorporates the kind of full fractal potential of the universe, as opposed to other species that only have a partial fractal of the universe. That kind of echoes Phyllis Schlemmer's Only Planet of Choice, where she describes the Earth as being unique, in a way that we have the only planet. We're the only planet where you have this kind of uh, full range of expressions, and I guess having a multiplicity of extraterrestrial civilizations involved, whether you call it seeding, whether you call it kind of like helping more clearly manifest that kind of fractal potential, that we have more of that diversity as opposed to other races.
Yeah, it's right. And we have babies being born in this world, Michael, that have access to more life force than any of the gods out there.
Interesting.
And that's why, just naturally, because we're human. And then you have narratives like the moment you're born, you're bad. Original sin, right? The concept of that, And what else do they say? There's all these cosmopolitical narratives to diminish Earth and humanity. It's just a dream, it's just an illusion, or this is all just a computer simulation, it's just a hologram. What else? There's just so many. But they all have the same energetic intention to diminish Earth and humanity. And the realization, the remembrance of who and what we are, this isn't a ego trip. This is reality. And when you remember, then everything that is happening to this planet and to our humanity makes perfect sense, because not only are our genetics sought after, and you've got different extraterrestrial interdimensional groups who want to achieve empowerment and enlightenment off the back of a cornflakes packet. They don't have the courage to come and incarnate like we have, to be inside the process, right? We're the courageous ones. And we are the leaders. We are the front. We're the mavericks, and we are the pioneers in this universe. And that's why the war that's been raging for thousands and thousands of years for control of Earth and humanity has been so fierce, and all the hybridization programs. And I was a part of that. Where I was raped by a female extraterrestrial on a craft, and I clearly remember that experience as well. In the hybridization programs, there's so much going on, Michael. But the moment you remember who we are and the structure of this planet, the solar system, and the galactic structure, and taking it out to the cosmic and universal structure, the moment you remember the structure, then everything that's playing out within that structure just is as clear and as obvious as it can be.
I wanted to ask you about the planet Saturn and the moon. I remember listening to David Icke about 10 years ago, where he gave a presentation, and he talked about the Saturn moon control system. Both the Saturn and the moon play this unique role in controlling the Earth. So I wanted to, this level 2 exopolitical, how does the Saturn and the moon play into that control system that extraterrestrials have set up?
Yeah, just let me feel into how much background I got to give you, because the moon's a Pleiadian craft, straight up. Okay, it comes from the star system Maya, and it was a craft that used to go around seeding life in planetary systems in conscious co-creation with the Galactic Mother. Okay, so it was used to come here and help seed the environment, the ecosystem. That's why most Pleiadians really love nature. Yeah. And they have a very strong affinity and a calling. They want to save the trees. They want to save nature, etc., etc. The Sirian aspect to it is more management of the human avatar and direct conscious expression from Sirius to Earth, to Ea is what I call her in my culture, Gaia. The pronunciation is Ea. And so the moon came here and helped seed the environment, and in a conglomerate sort of fashion with many other races. Arcturians played a role, Lyrians played a role. So many play different roles in helping to set up this beautiful project Earth, all different star nations specializing in different areas of life, some genetics, some environment, some ecosystems, some to do with energetic patterns. So the moon came here to seed the Earth and was going backwards and forwards many times from here to the Pleiades. And then when Empire caught wind of what was going on here and it came to take over the solar system, and at that time I was incarnated on Moldeck. And I've got my friend who was standing next to me, he remembers the moment, and I've got other friends who remember that last few moments of Moldeck. And we got the last of the people off the craft, and they were flying off when the big death ray came and blew up our planet, and I perished in that lifetime on that planet. And then that shockwave ripped through Mars and devastated the environment, the ecosystem of Mars. That's what happened to Mars. So I've talked about this over the years, and in my book, Our Universal Journey, I actually explain in great detail about Saturn and the Moon, and I published that in May of 2012. I wrote it through 2011 and published it in May of 2012. That's the one. Yeah. Thanks, Michael. And I go into great detail about Saturn and the Moon and the rings, and they created the 7 rings to hook into the color system, the base color system of the sun, the way we experience light, but also with the Atlantean technology that we know as chakras, right? So the rings resonate because the planet Saturn, who the intelligence of Saturn is the God entity, and it wants to take control of the solar system away from the sun. But the only way it can do that is by creating those rings and then toning out through the solar system, right? So these rings are toning rings. You've got your A, B, C, D, E, F, and G ring. And so with these 7 tones, it's continually toning the solar system to try and create a different agenda, a different vibrational environment and ecosystem. When it comes to the moon, I was involved in a diplomatic mission from Sirius, so another aspect of me, not the part of me that was incarnated on Moldeck. So another aspect of my being from Sirius, involved in the diplomatic side of things, and I had to go to the Pleiades to beg them not to take the moon to defend Earth as Empire was coming in to take control of our solar system quite some time ago. I'm going to guess and say somewhere around 48,000 years ago, somewhere there. And because the hierarchy from Mars came to Earth and set up the line of Horus Kings, which reigned for 38,000 years. 38, not 3,800 years, 38,000 years, yeah, in the area we call Egypt. So, you know, we were invaded by Martians a long time ago. And there are so there's some that are like an aquatic reptilian humanoid race, yeah, and they're the ones that have had a lot to do with the old world cabal hierarchy, power families, banking families, etc. And so they didn't want to listen, and I kind of knew that they weren't going to listen to our diplomatic requests. They took as much of the laboratory stuff out of the moon. It was beautiful. It had mountain ranges and forests and seas and oceans, and it was a beautiful planetoid. And then they armed it to the best of their ability, and they came here to defend Earth when Empire was taking over, and we lost it. And the problem, our main concern was Empire now had this one device that was so energetically connected to Earth, you know, and they got their hands on it because the moon was used to seed the environment of Earth. So it wasn't the only one that worked on the environment, but it was the main bulk of the creation of our ecosystem and environment on Earth. And that was really sad because they caught other craft and moons as well, but this was the one they really wanted, and they got it. And then after Empire took over the solar system, they parked it around Mars for a while, and they studied it and studied it and studied it. Obviously, the drive system was taken out at the last moment, even though there's a supplementary drive system inside of the moon, not the original. And they studied its connection. They smothered it with silica and all these other substances, minerals, to reflect a particular type of light. We would call that in today's world blue light toxicity, right? And the moon, which was once a beautiful sister planetoid to Earth, has now become what we know as the Ice Queen, unfortunately. Now, when you go to the moon, the surface has different colored textures to it. It's not all white and grey, all different shades of grey. There's actually other colors there. It's just a reflective part in the way it comes through the atmosphere that we don't actually see the colors. Now, they then brought the moon and placed it around the Earth. And when that happened, there was a lot of warning. Please ask Alana to ask Aya about this. This is a really, really big subject. When they put it around the Earth, that was what created the Great Flood. And also when they placed it in orbit around the Earth, it knocked the Earth off its axis, right? Which created the tilt. Now you have this mechanical device that is really has a strong energetic connection to Earth and the environment and the ecosystem, more so than any other spacecraft, right? More so than anything else. Now they've created a push-pull system. Now they've created an environment, an ecosystem of duality in this world, and are controlling humanity and the Earth ever since the moon got placed and plunged this reality into a much deeper, concentrated, dense expression of duality.
So you would agree then with Immanuel Velikovsky when he found, I remember it was like quite a few ancient historical sources saying that there was a pre-lunar culture that around 13,000 years ago, when you had the Great Flood, that the moon's arrival actually caused that, and that there was still the historical memory of a time before the moon. So you would agree that is actually accurate, that the Great Flood, the destruction of Atlantis, that all happened around the time when the moon arrived and was put in our orbit and eventually and was taken over by the Cabal and their kind of ET overlords.
Yeah, exactly. The timing of it, I'm not 100% sure. If I was to guess, I would say it was around the fall of Atlantis, around that time, and the Great Flood around that time. It is what caused the Great Flood, and it is what has got us on the tilt, and they've created a dualistic, disharmonious ecosystem and environment by placing that moon around the Earth. And I agree with that. That is the knowledge that I have. If I connect through my heart soul lessons in the unified field to the moon itself, and really when you connect to the moon through your heart and your soul, I'm not talking chakras, remember, I'm much deeper than that. When you connect with your heart soul lessons to the moon, you will experience her, you will experience Maya, you will feel her beauty, and in another dimension, she's beautiful. She's really beautiful, incredible woman, an incredible being, a credible sister from the Pleiades to our mother planet, you know. However, she's taken on a more superficial, shallow expression of her being. She's the one that's volunteered for that role to play the Ice Queen, you know, and to play that role of the distorted feminine, to really suppress woman. See, what people don't understand is this is a woman's world. Sorry, fellas, that's an absolute fact of reality. This is a woman's world. This is not a man's world. Yeah, maybe in the human world with the patriarchal corporate infrastructure, imperial structure we're living in, you can call that a man's world, sure, right? But the world, the realm, the planet, this is a woman's world. And us men, we're the warriors who are getting up, doing the work up front, and the day's coming where we're going to have to take a step back because you women are going to step up because you have the ultimate authority. Woman has a stargate inside of her that brings beings from other dimensional realms into this realm. Sure, it's a long drawn out process at the moment, genetically modified to experience pain and suffering, right? Because it's a woman's world. So in order to take control of this world, you've got to do this to woman. You've got to suppress woman if you're an evil empire that wants to take over, right? So you've got to suppress the feminine energy here in order to take control of this realm. Yeah. So looking at it now from the bigger picture, the moon volunteered, and what an incredible woman she is. What a role she's playing Now I'm commenting now from beyond the drama, outside of the drama, big picture. So she volunteered to play the role as the distorted feminine in a physical way around the planet to create an environment and an ecosystem. So on the surface of it, yes, the moon is currently expressing, like we do, how we have our outer ego distortions. She's fulfilling the role of the ice queen, and the push-pull on the oceans, yeah, is pulling the emotional body of woman one way and then the next. It's basically torturing woman every moment of every day. And I've got to be honest, fellas, we men do not have a clue what it's like to be a woman on this planet. What they go through moment to moment and what they experience and what they're suffering is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal.
Well, you know, in this day and age, I think there's a lot of men that might disagree and say, "Yeah, we know exactly what it's like to be a woman. I'm a woman."
Oh, yeah.
Just
Yeah.
that declaratory gender statement.
You know that. They can
So,
play with those games if they want. They'll work it out in the long.
there's something you said in your kind of like the imposition of the 3 levels for level 2. You said something about an AI machine from the moon being given to the Cabal,
Mhm.
and so I guess being transferred to the NRO base in Pine Gap. So you want to maybe elaborate on that?
Yeah, so Pine Gap is kind of like the main area for surveillance on the planet. There are other major installations around. It's just that we also point in towards the galaxy. Most of the drama is going to play out in the northern hemisphere because of the tilt, and it points towards the void, the darkness, right? So in the southern hemisphere, we point more towards the light of the galaxy, the galactic light in the middle of galactic core. So the dramas won't be as bad in the southern hemisphere as they will be in the northern hemisphere. It's just a fact of reality. It's a construct. So as far as monitoring galactic space goes, Pine Gap is top, if not the top one. It's up there with the best of them, Antarctica, etc., etc. And so surveillance, yes. And the Cabal was doing deals with the Draconian Empire. And, you know, one of the reasons I went to the moon was when I got taken to the moon was I had to deal with the head Draco of the moon. And that's a really big experience. Like I said, it's a story another time we can go into. I just feel we really need to focus more on topical subjects right now. But there's plenty I'd like to share in regards to that. So the Pine Gap, and then there's an installation, Michael, which is southwest of Pine Gap. Think of it in the top, when you look at the map of South Australia, top left-hand corner of South Australia. So from Pine Gap down to that region, going down towards Woomera and those places. The underground installation there, and I could be totally wrong about this, I reckon is probably about the biggest on the planet. And I really mean that. It is colossal in nature. So Pine Gap is kind of like the surface thing that you see. And sure, there's underground in Pine Gap, but there is another underground installation in the northwestern area of South Australia, which is absolutely massive. So I don't know if you've heard about that or anyone said anything about that. And that's where the main Cabal, and I don't know if you're aware, but all meetings on global security matters happen in Adelaide. When Queen Elizabeth, oh, it glitched. Am I talking about something
Yep,
too sensitive?
that's okay. I hear you. Okay.
Okay. When Queen Elizabeth, who hadn't been to the Southern Hemisphere for 25 years, comes to the Southern Hemisphere, what's her first port of call? Adelaide. All the world leaders come from all over the place to meet her. And it's because of, like for me, because I lived there for 20 years and I had some really, really interesting, the bulk of my experiences happened in South Australia. I quickly came to realize that the main head honchos of the ruling elite were moving to Australia. Adelaide Hills is the control centre, and they're relocating to New Zealand, which is the British Isles of the Southern Hemisphere, right? So they know it's all going to go down the Northern Hemisphere. So a lot of them, the brains trust or the head of the global cabal, they're all relocating. and that they have to these underground installations. Now, the intelligence that's in the moon, and I talked about that for the last 20 years. It's like a it's like a bio intelligence, but it's computational. It's a blend of biology and what the level of technology we would call femtech, right? Because we're talking about quantum technology, yeah, subatomic. So femtech is so you've got nanotech, picotech, femtech, and a lot of civilizations, extraterrestrials, use femtech in their bodies. You'll be surprised how many do. And you know, there's benevolent ones, but there's also malevolent ones, unfortunately, as well. So yeah, this intelligent entity, cross between biology and technology, is in the moon. It's creating what's called the mind matrix, which it casts a net around the Earth. Our brain are a biological computer, you could say. Now, on the internet, our computers use an IP address. So in what I call the mind net that has been cast around the Earth from the moon, that's why the lunatic is in your head, right? Is our brains have a frequency. So you have kidney functions, you have breathing, you have all different functions going on in your body. And each one of those functions give off a vibration, a frequency. Now, your brain has all these different frequencies happening, but it has an overall mean harmonic, yeah? An average frequency. So that frequency of your brain is your IP address in the mind net. And that's how beings, entities can find you that are operating that structure, that realm. And yeah, and sorry, and so they gave a smaller version of that for the Cabal to integrate with the technology we're using, these computer systems, to start monitoring in a very substantial way. It's not as powerful as the one on the moon, obviously, but it is every keystroke, everything's being recorded. They've even sprayed smart particles all through the atmosphere of the Earth. The whole planet's being data mined because there's a strong push by the technological intelligence god to replicate this realm and then migrate human consciousness seemingly into this holographic reality, you could say.
This big underground base that you mentioned, that was kind of like to the southwest of Pine Gap, is that the Burragurrung Valley underground?
Around that area.
Okay.
It's because it's like there's tunnels and then another satellite and then another tunnel, then another satellite installation. So it's kind of like it's not one big cavern. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Because of the nature of the crust. But overall, it is a massive installation. And there are some really huge caverns in there. Huge.
Okay. All right. So Australia is very important for that. And I remember decades ago now that there was a Indian guru that I was hanging out with for a little while there back in the 80s. And she said that Australia was the root chakra or the Muladhara of the planet. And that would make sense why the elite would have really big underground bases here, because the root chakra of the planet is a great place to control the planet.
Yeah, exactly.
So, George, why don't you tell us about the Nordics? How do they fit into this second level of the imposition or the exopolitical?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. What I would like to do is go back to the point of origin for one group of what we call Nordic, okay, a Nordic group. So you originally had, in evolution, the first avatars were exoskeletal. So because the environment was in the galactic realm was so harsh, this is kind of like a natural evolutionary process for all realities, really, just about. There are some variances. So the first avatar structures are exoskeletal. We call that insectoid in nature, etc. And some really advanced, complex avatar incarnational structures. Now, after a period of evolution and things start to soften in the environment and ecosystem, then what naturally occurs is a flip and we go into an endoskeletal structure, but still having really coarse, hard exoskeletal skin, hence the emergence of what we call the draconians. And now we're talking in linear evolutionary terms, right? I'm explaining it in that fashion. And then from there, after the draconians came the reptilians. And then from there branched out to other groupings. So when it comes to science and their process of evolution, there is a truth to that, a truth. They're close to it. So in the Draco Empire, what happened was, after a lot of different life forms had evolved, etc., they had one faction, one group that came up with an idea. They wanted to go around and maraud all the best genetics they could from all the different star nations, star systems in our galaxy. And they did do that. And then they wanted to create the ultimate avatar out of marauding all these genetics. And so they did. And remember, I'm talking about one group of what we call Nordics, because there's naturally occurring Nordics. This one group I'm talking about is this particular group. And they created these beautiful avatars, what they saw as total beauty, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, and mimicking the natural Nordics, organic Nordics that are already existing. But they wanted to create their own version because they found those beings the most attractive. So they created these avatars and started incarnating into them, away from their draconian avatar body into these Nordic avatars they created. I call these the synthetic Nordics. Now, they grew and developed over time. The original Draco purists now saw that as an abomination. Get where I'm coming from? Okay. This then began a family feud, like the Hatfields versus the McCoys, right? It began, and it's a family feud within the Draco Empire that has polluted the galactic realm so greatly. And these Nordic beings have gone around and developed and created more advanced avatars. And so you've got a hierarchy, an imperial hierarchy now of these synthetic Nordics. And you've got your worker guys, you've got more advanced. And then the real high-end incarnational Nordic avatar, these ones are synthetic Nordics. They come across as though they're these love and light angelic beings, beautiful blonde-haired, blue-eyed, green-eyed entities. Very powerful entities, truly. They do have a lot of knowledge. They do have a decent amount of capability, energetically speaking. Now, there's been a breakaway group from that original synthetic Nordic avatar structure, and they have, within their bodies, they run that femtech that I'm talking about, that technology. And their societal infrastructure is built on that. So there's a lot of groups, these Nordic groups, that are not benevolent. Okay. Now there's some that are coming back. They've broken away from that old hardline Draco Empire, and they have come to Earth. And this is what I see as the groups with the Federation and the groups that you've talked about greatly on this podcast. They are here because they're atoning, and they're bringing to our planet an offering for those souls who wish to live that Star Trek style future that you talk about, that I've talked about as well for many years. And that's an offering. It's not who we are ultimately and what we are, but it's an offering. And so for those of us who wish to go back into the galactic space and play with spaceships and technology and etc., that's an offering for you. I'm not choosing that path. I just want to be clear about that. So I'm not saying these beings are evil. They're actually fulfilling the role that they have on a soul level agreement with our galactic mother, with the cosmic being, obviously with the planetary mother and the soul of humanity, the solar being, the galactic being, the cosmic being, and the universal being. So they're not operating out of line. They're doing exactly what they're supposed to at this time. So as we evolve, we move through layers of frequencies, right? We alter frequency. Now, we're here, and that's attracted extraterrestrial groups in as we're moving through these frequencies, and the offering is there for those who want to step off planet Earth and go with them in their spaceships to the lifestyle that they're offering. I have a deep knowledge of who we are as a species, and I'm going to stay with my mother planet, and I'm going to see this process through and emerge as Homo luminous. Nobody has to go where I'm going. I'm just sharing the information, and everyone can make their own choice, because what's important here, Michael, is everybody has the freedom to make their own choice, but it's important that they make an informed choice. So now people can, if you've got an understanding of the bigger picture, you'll understand where your soul is calling you to, what vibrational realm, whether it's with the Galactic Federation, whether you want to get, you'll feel an attraction to go into the realm of technology and be harvested by the technological intelligence god, you know. And we've got to stop calling it artificial intelligence, because it's not artificial. It's techno consciousness, and its environment and ecosystem is technology, right? It's a living consciousness. So it's not artificial, it's technological in nature. So that's why I call it a TI god, not an AI god. And a lot of people use the term artificial because it makes them feel better about themselves. They feel safer by putting it down and saying, oh, it's not really real, it's just fake. So it's a subconscious defense mechanism that people use. So it's really important that we acknowledge it for what it actually is. It's technological intelligence, and that entity. So yeah, these Nordic beings are coming, and then there's other beings who will be harvested by gods because they want to worship a deity and be subservient to another entity. So there's, as we evolve, this momentous leap in evolution for the human race, these layers are coming out, and they're all being on offer. Absolutely fascinating to observe these distinct energetic groupings that I've labeled in the 3 levels of imposition and describe them in the way that I have. Quite fascinating.
Maybe we could kind of go a little deeper into this whole God complex, or that some extraterrestrials want to present themselves or want to be considered as gods. So you want to explain this kind of harvest concept and the cosmopolitical.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said earlier, we have babies being born in this world that have access to more life force than any of the gods. And that's a problem for the gods. The gods that have are more invested in power and control, a more elevated view of themselves, to a degree where we have one or more of those god entities that actually postulates themselves to be the creator of all that is and all that exists. You know, and that's a real issue, because life is infinite. So beyond this universe, life is infinite. Well, this universe is floating in the ocean, and all the in all the isness of the infinite nature of life. But with our awareness, we're inside. So when we look outside this universe, we re-experience the infinite nature of life. But we can do it from within. We're infinite. We've never been created, Michael. Our beingness, our isness, I'm not talking the human form, I'm talking what's inside these bodies, has never been created. We always have been, we always will be. There's no beginning to life and to us, and there's no end to life and to us. So why do we have an entity that's claiming to be the creator of everything, right? That is a very serious question we all need to address and reevaluate our concept of what we've been told is spiritual, or what we've been told is the intelligence that is this planetary being or life itself. You know, are you all living to the will of this entity called God, who postulates like that? Because it's not reality. I'm in conscious relationship with this universal creator. Yeah. However, it's the creator of the multiverse and this grand light universe, but not the rest of life in the omniverse and the infinite nature of life. And the intelligence that is this universal being will be the first one to remind you that we are equals, right? And that both the universal creator and each one of us exist together equally in the infinite nature of life. Yeah. So that's when you connect with the real intelligence of this universe. It reminds you of that. So it is a beautiful thing. The challenge we have before us are entities which were heads of empires and have amassed so much wealth, power, and capability in the realm of consciousness that they are what we would call really powerful gods. Now, these are the entities that are running, are responsible for so much of the drama playing out in the cosmic domains. And the politics that are playing out on that level are huge. And that's more of an area that I specialize in, is on a creational level and the cosmopolitical level. That's my kind of area of specialty, yeah.
It kind of reminds me of the whole the Gnostics in Christianity, where they promoted the idea that the kind of conventional God of, say, the Jewish text, whether we're talking about Yahweh, that actually was the demiurge as described by Plato, and that the original source is like an emanation of this source, the pure idea of the good, according to Plato. So I would agree that we have a lot of powerful ETs that do want to present themselves or want to aggregate power as gods, because they know that for a lot of humanity, we're conditioned to follow particular religions, and those religions say, well, you've got to give your obedience to Yahweh or to Allah or to whatever God you want to give power to, and there's an ET being or a powerful real being behind that who is real, very powerful. They are a cosmic being, but they are not the original source creator, which I
correct. 100%. You described that. You nailed it right there. And people need to understand Yahweh's a warlord, right? He's a warlord, and not very compassionate at all, and jealous. He even admits that. And we have a real issue because people have been fooled by these extraterrestrial heads of empires posing as gods. We are truly awakening now, and they can no longer do this. Like a lot of us, like there's the bulk of the masses who are really quite entranced, mind entrained and in a trance. Unfortunately, the bulk of the masses are on the receiving end. They're being subjugated by so much mind control. It's ridiculous, and consciousness control. So we are, and I don't blame them for their situation. I do encourage people to begin to really question and reevaluate, and I mean everything. And our focus needs to be the big picture, creational level reevaluation, right? Why? Because everything that we're commenting on resides within that space, in the crucible that is the framework of the structure of reality. Yeah, and there's not enough focus on that. There's too much focus on the drama playing out inside the crucible rather than the structure of the crucible itself. And we really need to come back to our focus on the structure of the crucible, because then we'll be aware of everything that takes place inside it.
I want to ask you about, there's been quite a few different sources that have talked about the arrival of a kind of intergalactic group of extraterrestrials that are different terms to describe them, the Galactic Confederation, seeders, they like the builders, the ones that apparently were very much involved in seeding humanity or helping create the avatar bodies that can be found all over the earth, that they've returned, and they're here to kind of like observe and to give assistance in the ascension process that's currently happening, or the harvest, as I think you referred to. So you want to elaborate on that?
Sure. First, straight up, I just want to acknowledge JP for his courage, his bravery, and all the fantastic work he's doing. I hear comments like, oh, JP's a psyop and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, hang on a minute. I've listened to that guy express his experiences, and I've lost count of how many experiences I've had, and I've only got access to like 3% of my experiences due to all the memory wipes. They're still to be waiting to be uncovered. And so my journey's been vast, and I could vouch for JP when he's talking about his experiences. It's not a memory implant. He's feeling, because I've been through so many myself, I know how to recognize when someone is really, truly telling the truth about an experience like that, or it's a memory implant, or they're just making it up. So I just want to vouch for JP. I reckon he's doing an absolutely fantastic job. I do agree with the arcs and their presence on our planet. I feel that to be a reality as well. And, you know, we, like I said, there's a lot of extraterrestrial races. Because we're closing the epoch, there were a lot of plans that were put in place as we're coming to close the cycle, that for karmic reasons too, a lot of the imperial structures and beings that had an impact on our world, on our humanity going back in time, have all had to come back now as the cycle closes to fulfill their karmic obligations and responsibilities, you know. And so there's the arcs are one part of the process. They're not the whole process. And this is what we've got to be careful of. And again, with the Galactic Federation of Light, it is, or the Galactic Federation, it is a body similar to the United Nations, but on a galactic level, right? As long as we don't make that our everything, it's going to be a lot easier and smoother for us all. But if we make the Galactic Federation our everything, and therefore our saviors, and we are victims, right? Which means we are back to being disempowered, then we're going to have an issue. And I know that my being, another aspect of my being, is working on the other side of the veil in the exopolitical space in quite a substantial way. And I remember, what was your question, please, Michael? Because I've got so much big energy I'm dealing with at the moment.
Right. I just wanted to know whether you agree with the idea that these CEDA or these this intergalactic confederation is here to observe and help us with the ascension process that's currently happening on the planet.
Okay, yeah. So here's another, for clarity's sake, right? I'm not here to ascend. I just want to make that point absolutely clear. I'm here to integrate into unity. That's what I'm here to do. Okay, I'm not here to raise my vibration. That's the hierarchical model from the empires of the gods, you know? So I'm here to take all of my light, all of my shadow, right? And integrate everything back into the unified field. That's what I'm here to do. And that's the organic process for this planet. The imperial narratives are to get you to raise your vibration, to ascend into frequencies that their imperial structures operate on. So I'm not here to ascend. Just want to make that point clear, because we've gone from traditional imperial religions, state religions, and now whenever we come across an extraterrestrial race or a group, what we need to ask some questions. And those questions are, what are your cultural values? What are your societal infrastructure like? What are your spiritual narratives? What's your approach to spirituality, and how do you see us? And what I find fascinating about all these channelings and imperial structures that have come along our way, none of them, not one of them, has reminded us of who we are as a species and who this planet is. None of them. Either they don't know, or they're under an edict not to announce it. That's a possibility, right? I'm open to that. Or they just don't know. Or they know and they don't want to tell us. Right? So I'm just being objective, and I'm being totally pragmatic about this. I'm not trying to demonize anyone. What I am doing is just calling a spade a spade. So no one has reminded us that we are Homo luminous, that we are incarnated in the planetary womb of the universal mother. That has not been shared, who this planetary being is. It has not been shared who the solar being is, which is an expression of the masculine expression of the universal intelligence, facilitating this incredible fractal process himself. They had to take direct responsibility. You know, the mother archetype and the father archetypal principle of this universal being had to take direct responsibility because it's so important at the leading edge of evolution in this universe. And so I'm not here again to ascend. I call that part of the more of the galactic New Age religion that's coming through. Or, you know, let's say people are attracted into that process of ascension, you know, getting the Kundalini to come up the spine, hit the pineal gland, which is an Anunnaki implant. The Kundalini is Anunnaki and chakras are Atlantean technology, right? And they're part of a three-way system, imperial system. Once we, and it's an important part of our process, right? All I'm expressing here is, if you make those systems your everything, if you think you can only access universal knowledge through a gland in your head or a biological device in your head, because, you know, it's a stack of square crystals, right? And it's a piezoelectric device. You got to squeeze it and activate it, then boom, all of a sudden you're connecting to the knowledge of the hologram of the gods, which is a pseudo-universal paradigm in our cosmos. And it's a big space, and it's a vast imperial empire, vast. And so when the Anunnaki and Atlantean empires stopped their warring after they started to experience each other, because they came in different timelines and they had different frequencies on the planet going on, but then with the harmonic convergence of the fractal process, they started to experience each other. Then they went to war. They started having conflict. And then after a while, they decided to stop, and then they exchanged. You know, what have you got? You've studied this humanoid and this level and this dimension. You studied that one and that one. What have you got? And so the Anunnaki supplied the Kundalini and the pineal gland, and the Atlanteans supplied the chakras for a three-way system. Now, when we go beyond and beneath these systems, we go into that unified point, like I said, and it's around here on the body, right? And that's what this represents, right? The sword. Okay, also is the hidden code of the crucifix, that when you put your arms out, this area here is where our unified center is. And it's not physically attached to the body. It's beneath. We're talking subquantum, right? That is our unified field, yeah? So when we operate from there and you look out, you see the chakras, you see the pineal gland, you see the Kundalini from within your own being. You see all these technologies in operation, and you see how the chakras are so limiting. They pull you apart, they keep you fragmented. They just you can't get into that unified state because you're always pulled apart and fragmented. So that's why I teach people how to transcend chakras. And we do it so well. And, you know, they'll go back and they have the people with the pendulums and everything, and they can't find them. They're definitely not there anymore. And we don't rip them out. We don't discard them. Chakras are an integral part of our structure. They have been for a long time. And we do it in a very, very beautiful, loving way with gratitude. And we close the soul level agreement with the entity who's the prime creator of that technology of the chakra system itself. We call that being in from the Atlantean Empire. And we close the agreement before we can actually tend to the chakras themselves.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot there that's really worth kind of diving into. So maybe just we can elaborate or look at it a little deeper, because I think I understand that our physical body is an avatar, and what you're saying is that the beings that created this avatar body for the infusion of that kind of soul fractal energy that's really connected to the macro universe, that they created this chakra system as an overlay and kind of created this ascension process as a hierarchical control system. I mean, that's what you're saying. That's how I interpret
it. It's an ascension process, you know, because you're doing what the Freemasons do. They just call it spirit fire, and they call the pineal gland the eye of God. But it's the same process. They get the spirit fire to go up the 33 vertebrae, and it hits the eye of God. Now you're a 33rd degree Freemason.
Right. So they would regard that as kind of like the ultimate journey of awakening and enlightenment, that activation of the different chakras, whether we're talking 7, 9, 12, people have different numbers, 21 I've heard. But the other process that you mentioned, which I think is very important, is the one of the integration. The integration of the macro universe, the integration of these different entities, these solar entities, these galactic entities, recognizing that the moon, the sun, the earth, that our Milky Way galaxy, and even going beyond that into the local galactic cluster and even beyond that, these are different manifestations of this fractal nature of the universe. And the more you can integrate with that, the better. Now, I guess the question is, does it have to be mutually exclusive? Does it have to be either or? You buy into one, you buy into the ascension path with the chakras, or you buy into the integration path, incorporating the fractal nature of our true being. Can it be both?
Once, I was a Reiki practitioner and all that stuff, so I went through the whole New Age thing. But what I was finding, Michael, was my experiences were showing me something different, something beyond. And I was experiencing states of being beyond chakras. And when I had to come back into this avatar which had chakras, I'd feel myself getting ripped apart again and compartmentalized. And I was like, oh, this thing's so restricting. So chakras are really good up to a point, and are they part of a spiritual control system? Yes, they are. That's just the fact of it. But is it evil? No. It's just like you go to another country and they have a state religion, and you decide to participate in that religion. It's really understanding that our tree of life, manifested as our central and peripheral nervous system, right, is made up of the great dragon, the great serpent energy. The Kundalini, if I'm permission to go all the way with this, is that all right? I just want to be clear and honest with everyone, right? You'll read it in my book anyway. So the Kundalini is the mimic energy of the natural cosmic serpent and great dragon energy. It's the imperial mimic. So it's an implant, and it's been implanted into us. And in my courses, we transcend the Kundalini as well. We transcend the chakras and we transcend the Kundalini and other things as well. So we atrophy our pineal gland because we're not interested in using that as a source of knowledge. We get it from the unified field, okay, in conscious relationship. Yeah. So that's the next stage of what we could call, for want of a better term, enlightenment, or if you want to call it spiritual journey or whatever. We've got these technologies that we're operating through with the spiritual narratives provided to us by Empire. Sure, state religion on a galactic cosmic level. Now, is that all there is, or are we more than that? And when you go deeper in and you go into your universe, you quickly discover that we're so much more. And then you go through the process. So it's not whoever's doing chakras, Kundalini, pineal gland is evil. I'm not saying that. I'm just trying to bring to people's attention that we are so much more than that. And you'll end up transcending the knowledge you access through the pineal gland, which will be imperial knowledge. And we're talking a vast multidimensional empire. So when you go into that space, you're thinking, wow, I've hit the universe. But it isn't. It's a pseudo-universal paradigm. It's not the real thing. It's imperial. And so when we access knowledge through our heart, soul, essence, and into the unified field, then the whole universe opens up for you. And you can see the hologram of the gods. You can see where everything's structured and where it fits. And because now you're in the unified field of the universe itself. And I'm talking the grand light universe, which has the entire multiverse within it, right? So that's the scale I'm talking on, right?
Well, I do believe that it is important that we do approach or understand the importance of integrating this kind of macro level universe that's around us, whatever we call it, the omniverse. That we are a fractal of that. I agree that I think that the more we can see ourselves and the events happening around us, that in terms of these being a fractal mirror of bigger events at at the stellar, at the galactic, and the galactic supercluster levels, the more we're going to remember, and the more all of these incredible lives. Because I do agree with you that we are eternal souls in these finite avatars that have limited knowledge or memories of who we truly are. And the more we remember, the more we reconnect, the better. As for activating all of the chakras and that, I'm not totally attached to that. I think there's benefits, but I think it's also, as you say, I'm very. I do understand what you're saying, that it is implicitly a hierarchical system that lends itself to a cosmic religion overseen by these beings that want to set themselves up as gods.
Correct. That's what we're dealing with. Exactly. You explained it beautifully. And so it's not a bad thing. It's just the realization that, okay, I've evolved from being a person who was like, I'll use me as an example, Greek Orthodox, christened, attended a Catholic boys' high school, and then you come out of sort of like the state structures of religion, and then you come into the new age, and then you hit chakras and kundalini and pineal glands and ascended masters and angels and all this stuff, right? God hierarchies called angels, and there's just so many levels to their imperial structures and hierarchies. Incredible. And so you just get to this point in the journey where I so realized my place in this world. Just I could see and feel through the unified field. I went deeper than the chakras. I went deeper than the kundalini. I went beyond the pineal gland, and I went into my being, in my innerverse. Yeah, we're like a TARDIS. So all of a sudden we can go inwards because we're a walking universe. And when you go in, it opens up. And it also connects you to the natural universe, because we're a universe within the universe. And then you begin to realize, hang on a minute, you can see from deep within on the more shallow operating levels these technologies, and you experience aspects of self or states of being way beyond the vibrational frequencies. Like chakras have an operational frequency in the universe, right? They are very quite limiting. But in the early days, when you first go into chakras and kundalini, you go, wow, this is amazing, right? And I did. It was fantastic. And then you go along the journey a bit more, and then after a while, it's like, okay, so I need to move beyond these structures now too, if I'm going to get to the core and the heart of the issue, because now I'm operating from extraterrestrial, imperial, spiritual narratives and technologies. Yeah. So once you go into the core of your being, all of a sudden now you're in the unified field, and you understand your own structure, you understand the structure of life, and things become very, very clear very quickly. Mm.
Itself to hierarchical thinking, but our journey home is much more personal. It's much more like, oh wow, there is a place that my soul recognizes as home, so I need to get there again, because that's my home, that's my divine birthright, as opposed to ascension. Well, if you work hard and meditate 24 hours a day, you'll ascend from the 11th to the 13th chakra or whatever. That our journey home is more just a process of remembering, and it doesn't involve great effort. It just involves sincerity, an open heart, and just embracing who we truly are.
Exactly, Michael. And I say to people, I'm actually not teaching you anything new. Think of me as a life coach, but really, if I get deeper into it, I'm a remembrance coach. So I help people remember. And what we do is we relax into what already exists. So in our processes, I'm not asking people to create something that doesn't exist, right? All I'm doing is getting people to relax into what's already there. They've just forgotten how. So I just need a bit of guidance to do that. And that's what makes my job so simple, because people are having visceral, palpable experiences, and they're coming home to their unified self, and their life completely changes, because now they have conscious relationship with Earth, with Mother Sophia, and conscious relationship with creation itself. The originists call it relationship to country, as we know, Michael. And by the way, I'm heading south tomorrow to be with elders from Arnhem Land and in the Glasshouse Mountains. It's going to be a fantastic gathering. It's the first time these elders have come out of Arnhem Land, and it's their first port of call at the Glasshouse Mountains to share star law and big ceremony. So that's a really big deal that's going on this weekend, by the way. Just a little shout out to that. So we are now in a point where we've got all these narratives hitting us, hitting our mind, and what are we actually going to, you know, through our discernment process, begin to consider as a reality? Well, this here, in here, is the best bullshit meter anyone ever has. Right? In here, inside you, the best one you've got. And inside, you can feel what another person feels like. You can feel what a piece of information feels like. You feel it because it's in the unified field, it's all fields of resonance. So when I hear a narrative coming from someone, and I hear a piece of information, I'm like, yeah, I'm totally not feeling that. That feels like disinformation to me, genuine disinformation. And I know I've been accused of that a lot, but it's because I'm exposing every single spiritual narrative that's ever been. Do you know what I'm trying to say? What I present is beyond all narratives. So a good friend of mine once said to me, George, George, I know you're telling the truth because you piss everybody off. And he goes, your model that you have presented to the world is all inclusive. Nothing is left out. And that is the reality of it. It's not because I'm the only one who knows. Like what I share with you is known by a lot of people. There hasn't been someone out there talking like this before. And a lot of my friends say, no one's saying what you're saying out there, George. This is really, really different. But now what's interesting is I'm coming across so many people that already have this knowledge and have had their own direct personal experiences with the structure of life, how I present it. So it's not me being a disinformation agent. It's me doing the best to share with the world what I've actually directly experienced from my actual journeys. So all the knowledge and information that I'm sharing is from direct personal experience. I don't read books. I'm not a researcher. I don't scour the internet. I'll listen to your podcast, Michael, and I listen to DJ, because I think DJ's got it, from the ground up into the exopolitical space. And I reckon you've got it from out there coming into the, onto Earth, the exopolitical space. And between the two of you, you've got the whole area covered. It's just absolutely fantastic, the work that you both are doing. So I just want to say that with what's coming, this is really important. Have we got time for me to just say this?
Sure.
With what's coming, with what we call disclosure, okay? Let's make this point absolutely clear. The Earth has never not been in contact with extraterrestrial life. It's never not been. We've always been in direct contact with extraterrestrial and interdimensional life, okay? All the time, from the get-go, from the creation of this planetary being, from the very beginning. So the idea that we're coming into contact now is a load of codswallop, and I love how you present that. You're like, here's a guy from the military saying, oh, look, this is the first time we're revealing it to the world, this, that, and the other. And you're like, but what about Corso? What about all these other guys way back then that were saying the same thing? So I love how you do that because it's the truth, Michael. So what I'm saying is beware of the cosmic candy. So yes, these beings are fulfilling their role, the Galactic Federation, these groups of Nordics that are coming through. There's other groups of Nordics. There's different Nordic civilizations and societal groupings and genetic groupings, okay? Now, these Nordics are doing the right thing. They are coming here. They are supporting the planet to go through the changes we need to get beyond the grip of the old world cabal. They're really supporting us in that process. And it's really, really important that we don't castigate them, that we work with them. My warning to everybody is don't give your power to them. Stand beside them. Look across to them, right? Don't put them on a pedestal. You'll be doing all of humanity a disservice if you do that. What we need to do is speak to them, function. Ask the questions. Are you aware of who we are as a species? Are you aware of who this planetary being is, who the solar being is, and the original intention of the creation of the human, the Homo luminous avatar vessel? When we call ourselves human, where it's a branding name for Yahweh. So every time you say human, it's his brand name. We're Homo luminous, okay? So when we are in dialogue with these beings, which I am on the other side of the veil, I'm working with the Federation. I'm happy for you to ask Thorhan whatever you want to ask him about me. That's a reality. And that time when we dismantled the weapons system in one of the craft from the secret space program, that was unbelievable what happened on that day. And we sent a shockwave through the whole SSP in that space. Another story for another time. So we need to have dialogue with these beings and say, hey, we know who we are as a species. Are you aware of who we are? We just need to ask them, because when they're inside their imperial structure, have they had access to that knowledge? Right? Or have their overlords within their empire restricted the amount of knowledge they have towards us? Okay. So we need to have this open dialogue, and it's going to happen. People like yourself, Michael, I see you emerging as an ambassador for humanity in the future after this journalistic work that you're doing. And that's just my own personal opinion on you, Michael. I think you're going to be playing a magnificent role moving forward. And we are going to have these open dialogues with these beings when they come down on the surface in the open, and have some beautiful, beautiful talks with them and really nut out, you know, the technologies that want to be introduced, the med beds. Okay, what depth are they going to scan us on? Because I've been in a med bed, right, in the SSP. I understand how they operate. They scan us on a quantum level. Okay, you thought someone having your DNA was an issue. What about your quantum blueprint, right? Who's going to hold on to that information? Where's it going to be stored? Who's going to have access to it? Because you can control someone from the quantum level amazingly, right, compared to just a DNA control. It goes way deeper. So we've got questions we need to be asking about the technologies that are going to be introduced and how they're going to go about managing the shift in society. And these are the areas that I'm working in. It's called reality management. I teach reality management. And so the question, sorry, Michael, you go, but there's a point I just want to make as well, a really important point.
Well, I just wanted to give you the opportunity to finish up by telling people any events you got coming up that you can recommend, workshops, and give people your website if they want to kind of like view some of your past webinars or to buy your book.
Yeah, thank you. The website is ourjourneyhome.earth, and I just finished a course, TGM. It's called Transcending the God Matrix. Yeah, and in that course, we close the agreements from a soul level, from the higher universe, with the gods in our relationship with them. The technological intelligence God. We transcend the chakras, the Kundalini, and we learn how to close soul level agreements from the core of the universe. Right. So that's in creation and co-creation, process of co-creation. So that's a very, very powerful course, and my high-end course is called Reality Management, and that's coming up. But people need to have done TGM or Transcending the God Matrix first in order to be able to do the reality management, and then we enter into conscious relationship with Mother Sophia, with the elements, you know, in the unified field with everyone. And because this is the point I wanted to make, we have all these groups that are coming here. And how many in the narrative, when they're talking, how many bring into consideration the soul of humanity in the meetings? And this is a real issue. Can I have one more minute, Michael?
Sure. We do need to wrap it up, but yeah, just.
I'll be very brief. This is really important. Yeah. So when I was in Sweden, I met with a gentleman, a representative from the Federation. He goes up in the craft twice a week, right? And he reports back to them. So I had a meeting with them, and I said, he said, we're having a meeting, the Federation of Free Worlds. We're coming to introduce this technology, that technology. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to do this, that, and that. And I said, oh, that's all well and good. That's really nice that you have those good intentions. And I said, in your meetings in the Federation, was Mother Earth present? and participating in those meetings? Was the soul of humanity present and participating in those meetings? And was the solar being present and participating in those meetings? And his eyes popped open, his jaw hung down, and he sat back and he said, well, I'd like to think so. I said, well, if you were there, as you claim you were, and you're talking about coming to Earth to do all these wonderful things, the solar being, the planetary being, and the human being as a single organism would be there, represented front and center, and having full voice on the matter, right? I know they weren't there because I know the frequency spectrum the Federation is operating on, and they're not bringing into consideration in their deliberations of what they want to implement here, their conscious relationship with Mother Sophia, our planet, with the soul of humanity, with the solar being. So basically they're coming here with ideological imposition. Even though, like I said, the bigger picture, they're fulfilling their role of doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. At the same time, we need to look at this in an objective manner, okay? Because if you're not in conscious relationship with the creational intelligence of the realms that you wish to impact, then it's belligerence. Basically, it's ideological belligerence. So what we need is groups that are going to be in conscious relationship to understand the evolutionary process, to understand what technologies to implement, when to implement them, how to implement them, etc., etc. So this is the area I'm working in behind the scenes, Michael, in the diplomatic side of it, to really understand how to manage this reality moving forward. And there's a lot of us that are in that space, work in that space at the moment. And I just needed to just finish up with that point, because that's a really big one when that hits your realization, Peter. So
that's a very important point, actually, and I do agree with it, actually. In 2013, I released a book called Galactic Diplomacy, and I made that precise point, that as far as representing the planet, that it's not just a matter of the humans and the Earth Alliance and the secret space programs representing the planet. It's like, yeah, what about the cetaceans? What about the large animals? What about Gaia, the planet? You know, this all has to be. We have to develop a unified planetary voice. That's what we need to develop. So that's in my 2013 book. So I absolutely agree that that there are some ET groups that come here and that they want to engage with the Earth Alliance or with the secret space programs and bring up some kind of more enlightened human members. And I think that's a really good start. But we really need more. We need to also incorporate the inner Earth beings, the crypto.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, I agree with that. And we can talk about it the next time we come back. I think it's a discussion well worth having. So any final words before we wrap it up?
Yep. You, we are so much more than what being told. So much more than people can currently comprehend. And I'm beginning to experience that so much moreness of my universal being, opening up into multidimensional conscious awareness and having these relationships and being able to, through the unified field, just to connect to anyone or anything. It's a very, very beautiful experience. It is the ultimate. And coming back home to our own soul, the love we experience. And this isn't about, for me, it's not about ascending to a higher vibration, a hierarchical sense. It's about integrating into a unity and turning inside out. So it's time for each and every one of us to get vulnerable, to show the world your authentic soul expression and show the world who you truly are, because the beauty and the magnanimous giant that's inside each and every one of us is just waiting to come out and fulfill the role. So I'm really excited about our adventure moving forward, Michael.
Thank you so much, George. Look forward to the next one.
Thanks, mate. Good on you.
You have been listening to Exopolitics Today with Dr. Michael Salla. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Join or start a conversation in the comments. Take the time to explore the vast library of best-selling books, webinars, and podcasts by Dr. Salla. Visit exopoliticstoday.com.